বর্ণালী কি আসবে? জিজ্ঞেস করেছে কারণ কিটা করতে হবে, কত কাউন্টের করতে হবে। হ্যাঁ, আপুয়া প্রপার্টি ও আচ্ছা একদম হ্যাঁ ঠিক হয়েছে। হ্যাঁ স্যার স্যার একটু বেরিয়েছে ঘরে নেই, আমরা জানিনি যে আপনি এসেছেন। হ্যাঁ বলে দিন। ঠিক আমি রাখবো তো অবশ্যই দিলাম। হ্যাঁ বর্ণালী তুমি কি আজকে আসছো? আচ্ছা এসে ওই যে গভর্নমেন্ট টিভিটা করতে হবে, কত
Vidyalaya, I welcome you all to the inaugural ceremony of Faculty Development Program organized by Sri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya Indore under the aegis of Association of Indian Universities Academic and Administrative Development Center at Sri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya. Theme of this faculty development program is improving teaching learning process through technical interventions. To grace the inaugural ceremony of the FDP by their presence, we have with us Honorable Chief Guest of the event, Padma Shri Dr. D.B. Pathak, Chairman, Board of Governors, IIT Indore and Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay. Professor Suranjan Das, President, AIU and Vice Chancellor of Jadavpur University, Kolkata. Dr. Upinder Dhar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, SVVV, Dr. Anand Rajavar, Dean Academic, SVVV, and Nodal Officer, AIU-SVVV, Academic and Administrative Development Center, Dr. Jigyasu Dubey, Head IT Department, Mr. Preman Sharma, Assistant Registrar, Academic Section, along with all the guests, delegates, and participants. Association of Indian Universities is one of the premier institutions of higher education in the country, established in 1925 as an authorized central agency to support the government and higher education institutions in shaping the higher education system of country. Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya has been established with a vision to be leader in shaping better future for mankind through quality education, training, and research. AIU Academic and Administrative Development Center at SVVV is offering short-term programs of varying duration aimed at continuous capacity building of the key stakeholders through online and in physical modes. This faculty development program is hosted by AIU-ADC on improving teaching learning process through technical interventions. Objective of this FDP is to building the capacity of aspiring teachers and researchers for transforming the education culture by improving teaching and learning process through technical interventions. It is the mark of undying tradition of India to invoke the Ma Saraswati at the beginning of an important event. We will have traditional auspicious lamp lighting ceremony. For this, I would like to request Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. D.B. Phatak and other dignitaries on the dais to join the lighting of the lamp.
या कुंते रधवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युत शङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा.
Thank you, sir.
I tried online. Become actor video.
To welcome our guests in the program, I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Upinder Dhar to welcome our Chief Guest Padma Shri Dr. D.B. Phatak, Chairman Board of Governors, IIT Indore and Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay. Thank you, sir. Our guest, Professor Suranjan Das, President AIU and Vice Chancellor of Jadavpur University, is along with us in virtual mode. So I request Honorable Vice Chancellor of Shri Vaishnav Vidyapeeth Vishwavidyalaya to virtually welcome our guest, Professor Suranjan Das. Thank you, sir, for joining. Thanks to all the dignitaries for joining the event and giving their valuable time to us. To introduce us about this faculty development program, I now invite Dr. Anand Rajawat, Dean Academic, SVVV and Nodal Officer, AIU-SVVV-AADC.
Good morning to all. Chief guest of the function, Dr. D.B. Phatak, recipient of Padma Shri, Professor Emeritus, Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay, Professor Suranjan Das, President, AIU, and Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jadavpur University, Kolkata, Dr. Upinder Dhar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, Dr. Jigyasu Dubey, Head of the Department, IT, Sukriti Agrawal and Mr. Primansh Sharma, Coordinator, FDP, Head of the Institutes, Head of the Departments, Dr. Arvind Singh, Joint Registrar, Press and Media, faculty members, and my dear young friends. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all in inaugural function of first FDP on the theme Improving Teaching Learning Process Through Technical Interventions, organized by Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, under the aegis of AIU Academic and Administrative Development Center, SVVV, from 9th to 20th January 2023. AIU has established AIU Academic and Administrative Development Centers in 10 different universities across India. The objective of establishing this center is to organize short-term professional development program for the faculty members and training programs for the administrative functionaries of the member universities, especially on the use of technology and adopting blended learning methods of teaching. We are glad to share that Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya is one of the AIU Academic and Administrative Development Center. AIU-AADC will offer short-term programs of varying duration aimed at continuous capacity building of the key stakeholders through online and in physical modes. The objectives of AADC are to provide continuous knowledge and skill execution and enhancement for faculty in order to contribute effectively to the changing landscape of higher education, to train administrative staff in higher education institutions with appropriate skills to adopt to emerging information technologies, to prepare library professionals and other technical staff in higher education institutions to contribute to knowledge cum learning and research resources as per the global demand and the local needs, to introduce research scholars to the principle of academic integrity and professional ethics. The theme of first faculty development program under AIU-SVVV-AADC Center is improving teaching learning process through technical interventions. Technology enhanced learning is important for many reasons. It is not only important because it is the standard for education that is expected today, but it can also improve education. Applications, softwares, and e-learning tools are some of the most useful and indeed irreplaceable tools available to many. Students have become more tech savvy than ever before, and much of their time is spent interacting with some form of technology. Rapid advancement in information and communication technologies, that is ICT, act as a primary catalyst of change in all domains of modern society. In education, they have provided the opportunities to create entirely new learning environment by significantly increase the range and sophistication of possible instructional activities in both conventional as well as e-learning setting. A wide diversity of powerful and readily available technology tools and platforms like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, AI-based learning systems, virtual learning communities, mobile learning devices, cloud-based computing, and 5G and beyond networks offer myriad opportunities for transforming pedagogy through the adoption of innovative learner-centered instructional approaches. 18 renowned speakers will deliver session during 10 days of FDP. Keynote address will be delivered by Dr. D.B. Phatak, Professor Emeritus, Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Bombay. Other speakers are Dr. Upinder Dhar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, Mr. Tuhin Kundu, Head Governance Analytics, Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, Dr. Rajiv Shukla, Professor, School of Management Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, IGNOU, New Delhi, Dr. Maya Ingle, Professor, School of Computer Science and IT, Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, Dr. Vineet Saula, Professor, MNIT, Jaipur, Dr. Santosh Dhar, Dean FDSR, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Indore, Dr. Rishi Dubey, Professor and Principal, Indore Institute of Management and Research, Indore, Dr. Prasanna Kumar, Scientific Officer, DBT IOC, Bioenergy Research Center, Faridabad, Dr. Ramesh Kothari, Professor, Saurashtra University, Dr. Manoj Kumar Tripathi, Professor, ISR, Central Institute of Agriculture Engineering, Bhopal, Dr. Meenakshi Mehan, former head, Department of Food and Nutrition, the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, Vadodara. Dr. Rakesh L. Srivastava, Professor and Vice Chairman, Indian Institute of Industrial Engineering. Dr. Vijay Singh Rathore, Professor CSE and Director Outreach, Jaipur Engineering College and Research Center, Jaipur. Dr. Archana Ranka, Professor, School of Law, Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. Dr. Mona Prohit, Dean, Barakatullah University, Bhopal. Dr. M. Pant, Professor and former Pro Vice Chancellor, IGNOU, Bhopal. Dr. K. N. Guruprasad, Director, Sri Vaishnav Institute of Science, Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Indore. Dr. D. K. Sharma, Honorable Vice Chancellor, SRM University, Lucknow. In valedictory session, Dr. Avinash C. Pandey, Director, Inter-University Accelerator Center, New Delhi, will join us as a chief guest, along with Dr. Amrendra Pani, Joint Director and Head Research, Association of Indian University, as a special guest. Once again, I am delighted to welcome all the speakers and participants. We are sure that this FDP will be a memorable, highly educational, and not to be missed event. We truly value your participation and support for this FDP. In closing, I hope that all of you will enjoy this FDP. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing the knowledge about FDP. Now, I would like to invite Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Upinder Dhar, for the welcome address.
Chief guest on this special occasion, respected Dr. Deepak Ji Phatak, my colleagues on the dais, President of the Association of Indian Universities, Dr. Suranjan Das, Directors of the constituent institutions, guests, and friends. At the outset, I would like to welcome Dr. Phatak on this occasion when we are starting the first faculty development program under the umbrella of AIU-SVVV Academic and Administrative Development Center. As we know, Association of Indian Universities is about 100 years old organization and has been advocating for the cause of higher education in the country. Last year, AIU decided that we should start academic and administrative centers in the universities in the country to facilitate continuous development, not only of the faculty, but also of the non-teaching staff. And in the first phase, 10 universities were selected. And thankful to AIU that Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya was one such institution where it was decided to establish this academic and administrative development center. I'm thankful to Dr. Suranjan Das, President of AIU, for giving us the opportunity to establish this center. Faculty development is an essential component of education, whether we talk of school education or higher education. Unless faculty is continuously developed, we cannot expect the caliber of the students to go up. Therefore, we need to continuously keep on developing ourselves as teachers. Times have been changing. New ways of teaching have been introduced. Particularly these days, there is an intervention of technology. Technology has changed the quality very significantly. But then, as we know, this technology is also advancing continuously. It is not that once technology has been introduced and it ends there. It is not. It's a continuous development that is happening. Therefore, we have to continuously develop ourselves. Unless we know how to handle the technology, we cannot do the justice to this teaching, learning process. We have seen the days as teachers when we used to have only chalk and the board in the class. We'll spoil our hands with the chalk dust. Even our clothes would be having the dust of the chalks. Those were the days. But then we have seen the days when we started using OHP, overhead projector, in the classes. And then later, as currently also we are using LCD projectors. Not only that, but we are also using internet in the class. While we are in the class is more lively. If a teacher, if a faculty wishes to use online assignments or online interventions in the class, he or she can do that. So methodology has been changing. Therefore, it is necessary to be well up to date with the technology. We cannot afford to say that, well, I'm an old timer. It is for the youngsters. No. Everyone, irrespective of the age, has to be up to date. There used to be a time when we would feel that something is missing if fountain pen was not in the pocket. But today, it is not fountain pen. It is the mobile. It is the ability to handle technology properly, use it as an aid for good purposes. That's why we thought of talking about technological interventions for improving the teaching learning process. Teaching learning process also has many aspects. One is the teacher, second is the student, and third is the pedagogy, that is method that we use. The method is chosen based on the nature of the subject, what we want to teach. There are subjects where dialogue method may be very effective. Simply having a dialogue with the students, simply having a discussion with the students. But then there are subjects where technological intervention is a must. So therefore, to learn how to use technological interface, for a program of this title, we thought, who can be the best person in the country to make a beginning, to set the ball rolling? And the first name naturally that came of respected Dr. Phatak. He is well known in the country for making these technological interventions, not only today, for decades. For decades, he has made very significant contribution, and all of us know. Therefore, we thought that he is the right person to motivate everyone, and so that everybody gears up for the learning. Today, in these 10 days in this program, all the teachers will be on the other side of the desk, listening and feeling how a student feels when we only talk and keep on talking. And we would realize that how essential it is to be an equally active partner in the class. Now, there is a shift from teacher-centric classroom to student-centric classroom. So how to make a class student-centric? How to make everyone to participate while using the technological interventions? That we'll be learning during these 10 days. I'm sure that all of us will feel benefited by attending all the sessions. And I will not prolong my deliberation because I know all of us are very eager to listen to Professor Phatak. So I wish happy learning to everyone. And once again, I welcome Dr. Phatak and Dr. Suranjan Das to this very inaugural session of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind wishes. Professor Suranjan Das, President AIU, is among us in virtual mode. Professor Suranjan Das is President of Association of Indian Universities and Vice Chancellor of Jadavpur University. He is also the Honorary Professor at the University of Exeter, UK. Earlier, Professor Das served as a Professor of History at the University of Calcutta and served that institution both as Pro-Vice Chancellor Academic and Vice Chancellor of the University of Kolkata, and also as Honorary Director, Netaji Institute for Asian Studies, Kolkata. A DPhil degree from the University of Oxford has won acclaim as a specialist in South Asian history and politics, especially in the realms of identity politics, nation building, and Indian foreign policy. He was president of the Modern Indian section of the Indian History Congress 2003 and the General President of the Punjab History Congress 2014. He has held visiting assignments in institutions of higher learning in Europe, USA, and Australia. He has been a member of academic and semi-academic delegations to countries of Asia, West Asia, Latin America, Europe, and Australia. He remains associated with policy formulation bodies for higher education in India. He has authored 5 major monographs, co-authored 3 volumes, co-edited 5 books, and published 28 articles in refereed journals and edited volumes. Professor Das is a recipient of many national and international academic awards and honors. Now, I would like to request Professor Suranjan Das ji for the presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Respected colleague of mine, Dr. Upendra Dhar, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University, hosting this meet. Respected Dr. Dubey, head of the IT department of the university. Respected Dr. Phatak, and all of us are eagerly waiting to hear him. Other distinguished colleagues of mine present here, and the distinguished participants in the program. Could I first say a very big thank you to Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya, especially Dr. Upendra Dhar, for enabling me to be here. On my own behalf and on behalf of the Association of Indian Universities, I sincerely express my gratitude to Dr. Dhar and the Vaishnav Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya for accepting the AIU's request to host the academic and administrative center to promote the teaching learning process by organizing faculty development programs, both for the teachers as well as for the non-academic staff. And I'm sure under the stewardship of Dr. Dhar, the unit that has been established with AIU support will attain miles of excellence. Thank you very much, Dr. Dhar, for accepting our request. I shan't take much of your time because we are all eagerly awaiting the address by Dr. Phatak. But I would like to make 1 or 2 points, starting from the point where Dr. Upendra Dhar ended. As we all know, like in many other countries, there is also a paradigmatic shift in the higher education system in India. And this paradigmatic shift, as Dr. Upendra Dhar rightly pointed out, is in tune with the increasing use of education technology. But my point is, whether using education technology is enough, or we also need to develop appropriate pedagogies so that the technologies that are in vogue now can be effectively used for developing a teaching learning process. And that is the point that the new education policy 2020 is always emphasizing. If I'm not totally incorrect, there are 4 established forms of pedagogy. First, there is constructivism, which is based on the idea that students are active rather than passive learners. Then we have the pedagogy which is called social constructivism, which pins faith on the notion that when students observe an adult demonstrating a task or reacting to a situation in a particular way, the students can copy those actions for themselves. Then there's a third form of pedagogy, which is called behavioralism, which believes that the teacher should be the sole authority figure to lead the lesson. And finally, we have what is called the liberationist pedagogy, which seeks to make classrooms democratic to enable the teacher and the taught to work collectively. But none of these pedagogical models are exclusive of each other. But all higher education institutions traditionally practice these pedagogies in an interdisciplinary mode, in an interactive mode. What is, however, true is that all these pedagogical styles have been traditionally practiced in the current fixed location education system, where learning can only happen in a physical place, that is campus, where learning can be acquired from fixed people, that is teachers, and where learning has to be completed within a fixed duration, that is the academic calendar. This is the notion everywhere in our country and also of the world. But nowadays, teaching learning process is witnessing a definitive shift from what has been called informative curriculum to formative and transformative curriculum, where there is an increasing emphasis on linking course curriculum with hands-on experience, where there's emphasis on flexible courses with multiple entry-exit options, where there's increasing talk of industry linkage, and of course, as Dr. Dhar pointed out, there's an increasing reliance on education technology. In fact, I always feel that we are faced with the challenge of the gradual eclipse of exclusively physical infrastructure-based universities. Instead, we are likely to end up with interdisciplinary teams, not necessarily based in the same physical location, but linked with virtual mode across national boundaries. My question, therefore, is, are the established pedagogic methodologies sufficient to meet this challenge of emerging student-centric, non-physical based education? Perhaps not. And herein lies the importance of an exercise like this. We need to appreciate that teaching and learning are two qualitatively different processes. Unfortunately, India's higher education system tends to be based on institutions of teaching and not learning. It is still based on the belief that knowledge would flow from the blackboards and lectures to the blank minds of the peoples. But this institutional mode of teaching needs to be broken. Information and communication technologies are providing us with new possibilities of learners being able to plan their own learning according to their own interests and needs. One would not then be forced to sit on a bench waiting for the slow trickle of knowledge through the blackboard while the mind of a student races in other directions. If that is becoming the reality, we need to have develop exercises to develop the right pedagogy. At this moment, I would also like to flag two issues where we need technological interventions. We all know that how colonialism and subsequent globalization has stultified the indigenous knowledge system of a country like India. But we now need to unfold this indigenous knowledge system without being carried over either by a paradigm of modernity informed by Westernism or by archaism. But we need to rely on a paradigm of traditional modernity that seeks to strike a balance between modernity and tradition. I'm here reminded of what Swami Vivekananda reminded us, and I quote, "Know your past. Out of the past is built the future. Look back, therefore, as far as you can. Drink deep of the eternal fountains that are behind. And after that, look forward, march forward, and make India brighter, greater, much higher than she ever was," unquote. My question is, how can technology help us to achieve this task of unfolding the indigenous knowledge system? I'd like to raise one other fundamental question and end. The question that I would like to pose is, what should be the aim of education? Is it only to produce employable citizens? Surely not. The goal of education should be to create inclusive and critical citizens, capable of raising issues relating to a nation building process, particularly for a country like India, which bears a legacy of pluralism, multiculturalism, and assimilative civilization. A modern university needs to particularly nurture the spirit of cohesion, remembering Tagore's ideal of education as being mediated by empathy, compassion, and training in inquiry. My question is, how can education technology help us to achieve this goal? A point that has been again and again mentioned by the new education policy. And to me, the sole hope of human salvation lies in teaching. And I'm reminded of what Aurobindo Ghosh felt, and I quote, "Every teacher should bear in mind that nothing can be taught, but everything can be learned," unquote. Let this be the guiding spirit of this workshop, and I'm sure it will provide new entry points under the leadership of Dr. Pathak, so that education technology does not become an end in itself, but education technology becomes a means to a better teaching learning process, which will make India a better place to live in. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. It's an honor for us to be with Association of Indian Universities and contributing for nation building. Personality who gave a new dimension to teaching and learning and make all Indians proud. It's an honor for us to have such an eminent personality as chief guest in the event. Padma Shri Dr. D.B. Phatak, Chairman, Board of Governors, IIT Indore, and Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay. I invite Head of the Department of Information Technology, Dr. Jigyasu Dubey, to read the citation of Dr. D.B. Phatak.
Good afternoon, everyone. I feel honored and privileged to read the citation for Dr. D.B. Phatak. Dr. Deepak B. Phatak obtained his bachelor's degree in EE from SGSITS Indore and his MTech and PhD from IIT Bombay. He served IIT Bombay in various capacities from 1971 till he retired in 2018. He headed the CSE department from 1991 to 1994. He was Dean of Resources from 1995 to 1998. Was the founding head of Kamal Rekhi School of IT from 1998 to 2002 and headed the ASJ Mehta School of Management from 2004 to 2005. He held the Subrao M. Nilkeni Chair Professorship from 2000 to 2013. Presently, he is Professor Emeritus at IIT Bombay. He started an IT incubator at IIT Bombay in 1999 to foster innovation and startup culture. It has now evolved into SIGN, Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, considered as one of the best incubators in India. He started the country's first interactive distance learning program, initially using VSETs and later through internet. It has blossomed into the Center for Distance Engineering Education, CDEP. He set up the Affordable Solution Lab, ASL, at IIT Bombay in 2000. He is regarded as the pioneer of smart card uses in financial transactions in India. He developed low-cost devices such as smart card reader, clickers, and thin clients. He successfully completed the Akash project for affordable tablets. He is an open source evangelist and strives to popularize free and open source software and content. In 1983-84, Professor Phatak helped setting up the Department of Computer Science in his alma mater SGSITS and later in Indore University. During a sabbatical leave in 2003, he visited over 50 smaller engineering colleges in the country and interacted with thousands of teachers and students. He played a leading role in mentoring this talent pool through initiatives like the Aklavya project, T10KT, trained 10,000 teachers at a time, MOOCs, massive open online courses, etc. His focus is on improving quality of education at scale to meet the national aspirations. Professor Phatak has a long association with CSI. He was elected Fellow of CSI in 1999 and Fellow of IETE in 2000. As an expert in databases and information systems, he has been consultant and advisor to a number of organizations and ministries on the issue related to IT. In the financial sector, he has been IT advisor to SBI, RBI, UTI, IDBI, LIC, New India, UIIC, SEBI, NSDL, etc. He is a permanent invitee to the Payment System Board of RBI and chairs to the Technical Advisory Committee of SEBI. He has served on the boards of several companies and institutions. Professor Phatak is recipient of the Excellence in Teaching Award and the Industrial Impact Research Award from IIT Bombay. He was conferred Lifetime Achievement Award by Scotch Foundation in 2003, by DataQuest in 2008, by Devang Mehta Business School Award in 2010, by Interop in 2014, by IIT Bombay in 2014, and by CSI in 2018. He was listed among 50 most influential Indians by Business Week in 2009. The President of India honored him with Padma Shri in 2013. He believes that teaching cannot be just a profession, but has to be one's dharma. His dream is to see a resurgent India catching up with the world using IT as a springboard. Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya takes immense pride in honoring Dr. Deepak B. Phatak by inviting him to deliver keynote address on 9th January 2023 in the first FDP on improving teaching learning process through technical interventions organized by the Association of Indian Universities, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya Academic and Administrative Development Centers. Unquote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request Vice Chancellor Dr. Upinder Dhar to present the citation to the Chief Guest, Dr. D.B. Phatak. Thank you, sir. Now, for enlightening us with their words, I would like to call upon Dr. D.B. Phatak for the keynote address.
Respected Professor Rajit Sen, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Jadavpur University and President of AIU, respected Professor Upendra Dhar, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Vishwavithyalaya, dignitaries on dais, all my friend teachers and some students, as I can see that. It's indeed a delight to be able to share some of my thoughts with you. I must also add that it's a special privilege to participate in an event which is presided over by Professor Surajit Sen. After I got to know that he is going to be the presiding officer of this function, I read about him. He's a great historian. Unfortunately, I could get only 2 of his books on Kindle, and my wife prohibits me from purchasing hardcover books because there's no space in the house. Someday, I hope to meet Professor Surajit in person and converse with him, because history is always a great teacher to all of us to construct our future, as has been said already. Can I have my presentation, please? No, that's okay. I can speak from here. So, oh, I can advance. Huh? Did it work? No, the other way around. Oh, this part of it. Oh. You can see how complicated the technology can be. Suddenly makes me a Martian rather than an Earthling. Anyway, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts on why we need to critically introspect on what technology interventions we should plan. As has been very rightly said by both Professor Dar and Professor Surajit, that technology per se is not very meaningful unless we adapt it with an appropriate pedagogy is suitable for doing this. In this FDP, I have seen that so many important things are going to be talked about for specific technologies with details. So what I thought I will do is I will share with you some of basic fundamentals of teaching and learning as I have learned over 50 years of my life. So this is what I'm going to very briefly recapitulate our conventional teaching learning process. More specifically, I have compiled the number of hours that I spent as a teacher while teaching a semester-long course, and I'm sure all of you will have very similar experiences. I will then try to draw your attention to some very basic facts about how holistic education can be achieved. In fact, how education can be achieved to begin. The onslaught of technology is what you are going to face, that onslaught over the next 10 days anyway. But I will very briefly recapitulate those technologies which I believe are meaningful, at least to cater to the fundamental requirements of teaching learning processes. And finally, how do we choose the technical interventions meaningfully so that the process improves? So, everybody knows about pedagogy, so I'll very quickly go through this. Essentially, it provides a two-party view. So the context is always the subject matter, and you talk of a teacher and a student. And as was rightly said, most of the time, our understanding of the pedagogy has been teacher-centric, because it is teacher who implements it. Now, what is important is whatever pedagogy we adopt, whatever are our actions, our judgments, and teaching strategies, these actually shape the entire learning by students. Now, this is very, very important to remember. Very often we forget that. And the guiding factors are curriculum and syllabus. Now, here is an unfortunate observation that I have, that while curriculum should provide the philosophy and purpose of every program, whether it is BA, BCom, BSc, BA Agriculture, or BE, or whatever, the purpose and philosophy is rarely articulated in detail. Everybody, teachers and students alike, spend time in understanding the syllabus, which defines the details to be mastered by the students. Because ultimately, a teacher is obliged to cover the syllabus. That is the whole objective. That is how a teacher's performance is measured. How many lectures did he deliver? How many students passed his course? These are the matters of bin counting. And therefore, it is natural that teachers spend. Since students know that this is what teacher is going to do, the students also look at best at the syllabus. Nobody looks at the curriculum. The teacher's stress is obviously on content, delivery, and assessment, the three pillars of whatever you call. It's just a curious observation that these three important words, content, delivery, and assessment, do not include either teaching or learning. Very interesting. So both are assumed to be implied by these three words. But sometimes we tend to concentrate on these three words rather than the intrinsic implication. Students, of course, specialize in scoring marks. That is their lifelong ambition right from their childhood. After all, we admit them in our colleges based on the marks that they have scored. So obviously, they and their parents believe that scoring good marks is the only important thing in life. And of course, you can't score marks just like that. You have to study something, so you will learn something. But is that learning happening incidentally? Now, that is a moot question that we should ask as academicians. So, to conclude, the adopted pedagogy often revolves around the subject matter, and it is implemented through a standard engagement model, which is the conventional model, which is what we have a large number of lecture sessions. We have some tutorials, we have lab for few subjects, and assessment, where it could be home assignments, exams, or whatever. This is the general pattern. So as a teacher, if I'm teaching a course, whether it's a year-long course or a semester-long course, my time will get divided in doing all of this. So I have actually tried to calculate the proportion of time spent by a teacher. One thing which I have not explicitly stated anywhere in my slides, but I would like all of you to remember, is that there are only 24 hours in a day. And that is true for teachers, that is true for students. Just as teachers have many things to do, a teacher has to do maybe multiple subjects. Teacher also has family, teacher has to travel. Don't forget that the student is also busy. The student has to play games, watch movies, spend time with other students, enjoy life, and occasionally study. So within those 24 hours, everything has to be planned. So as I said, I have not stated it anywhere in my slide, but I think increasingly it is very important that people, both teachers and students, should not only do hard work, but should do smart work in utilizing every moment that we have, because there are only 24 hours in life, every day. So Here are the typical numbers from my experience. I will not spend too much time in this. All these slides will be available, by the way. I mean, all my talks are open source, so I have requested Dr. Rajawat to circulate these widely to anybody and everybody. So I just calculated, before the course begins, I'm assuming that I'm teaching this course for the second time. That means first time I have prepared something. So I will spend time in reading textbooks, reference books, revise my knowledge. I will select enhancements to my content, new examples I will select. I will modify my presentation slides and notes. Then I will deliver lectures. Before every lecture, I would spend some time in sort of revising the content. So these are the typical times that I will spend, number of hours. And I have calculated as a percentage, I calculated approximately 200 hours I will spend in a semester in teaching a course. Notice the first line, interaction with students inside and outside classroom. That is, while giving a lecture when some question answers happen, and subsequently when the students meet me or I meet this. I spent about 15 hours, which is only 7.5% of the total time I spent on the course. I will elaborate on this later. Then, of course, I have to set questions for tests and exams. I have to assess the answer books. I have to do record keeping of the marks scored by others. In the IIT system, there are cribs. When students' answer books are written, they come back saying, I should get 1 more mark here, half mark there, etc. And there is an argument. In fact, the interaction time that I mentioned, a significant part of it is spent in this crib handling. Okay. But I have accounted for it separately. So then, of course, there are some students who are laggards, so I have to arrange for special sessions for them. Many of my colleagues and I also arrange special sessions for the top performers because they need to be challenged with harder problems. That happens on a Sunday or something like that, but that is an additional thing. And then, of course, there's the feedback that the students give. In IIT system, the feedback has to be given by all students before the course ends, but it is given to the teacher only after teacher declares the grades. So this is the sort of precaution that the institution take. And now I have 200, 300 students in my first year favorite course. Earlier, I used to have 60, 70. So a lot of time is spent. In fact, initially, I used to get enchanted with the beautiful description that the students will give, fantastic teacher, great teacher, etc. I realized later that out of 100 or 150 feedback, there are 5 or 6 pages where the students have been critical, saying, "Ye aapne theek nahi kiya, you should have chosen better problems, you should have spent so much time." And then I realized that these are the 5 pages which actually teach me something to improve myself. So I learned quickly to look for those pages and concentrate. But that often does not happen. I don't know whether all institutions have this compulsory system of collecting students' feedback and letting the teachers know. I tell you, it's a great thing for the teachers who take it seriously and for the students who take it serious. My own experience tells me that teachers in IIT, for example, who are known to be extremely tough in grading, sometimes 50% of the students in their class fail. But when it comes to teachers' evaluation, the same teachers are accorded the best possible assessment by the students, saying one of the best teachers. So students can act very responsibly if you give them that responsibility. Anyway, I digress. So this is the total time. Now, here is the moot question. How much did I interact with my student? Inside and outside classroom, 15 hours. Imagine in a semester, suppose there are 75 students in my class, I just spent about 12 minutes per student on an average during the entire semester. In 4 months, I interacted with individual student only at most for 12 minutes. And it is quite likely that some students are more vociferous, I interacted with them more, and some students I did not interact at all. Should this not bother us? Is this not an important element that should be made obligatory in any pedagogy that we define? Unfortunately, it is not considered important and relevant because neither the content, nor the delivery, nor the assessment factors in this urgent and important requirement of interaction with students. Most good teachers do that intrinsically and automatically, but it's not defined as a requirement. So here's the question that I asked 50 years ago when I was given the first independent class and I had large number of students. So I asked my senior teachers that in a class which has diverse students, the diversity is not only in their capabilities, but also in their background, knowledge, everything. So what should be the focus of my lectures? And I was uniformly told by all my seniors that your focus should be on the average of the class. That's the standard answer that we get even today, and I give the same answer. Except I make a difference now because I was not happy with this answer by this. So I went home and I drew this graph. On x-axis, I plotted the capability and motivation to learn, which will be different for different students. On y-axis, I plotted the knowledge of the subject, that is background knowledge to begin with, and the knowledge will grow. You will agree that students will be dispersed all across this two-dimensional path. Then I methodically calculated the spatial average of all these points. And I came across this point here. And I discovered to my chagrin that there is no student at that. So the average where there is none. And next day I went to, I remember still that discussion with Professor Sengupta, one of my senior colleagues, said, sir, yesterday you told me that I should focus on the average of the class. But does it mean that I'm teaching nobody then? He says, Phatak, don't be too smart. You understand what I mean. What I mean is when you focus your attention on the average of the class, everybody will benefit equally. I was not happy. So I went back home and drew this curve. Look at what happens when I'm focusing my attention at the center. Every student is drawn towards that focal point. The people in the left bottom corner will obviously move forward because for them, the focus is elevated at a higher level. But what happens to all others? The top performers will simply get bored. In fact, their knowledge instead of increasing might decrease. So most students are negatively affected, was my conclusion. I was not happy with this at all. Why was this happening? This was happening because I was teaching a class and not an individual student. Whereas what I have in my class are individual students. So I drew this line, which I have decided to be the desired way. That means I must somehow ensure that all students in my class move from wherever they are upwards continuously. I believe that is the responsibility of a teacher. And I believe that any pedagogy that we adopt, any technology that we adopt, if it does not help this, then I think we are failing somewhere in our teaching learning process. So here are some points that I would like to share with you. How does a student learn and how do we assess the learning process? The next two questions are rather generic. These are part of the national educational policy, the new policy initiated. Do we provide holistic education? That is one question. The answer sadly is no yet, because we have created silos beautifully, arts, commerce, science, engineering, and nobody must know anything about the other field than what I'm studying. Management must remain far removed from everything else. This is the kind of silos that we have created, and we enjoy doing that. And students whose sole objective in life is to get good marks in whatever you test them for. So if you are going to test them for this, that is what they will do. The second, do I look beyond the subjects I teach? Sadly, the answer is no again. Because again, as a teacher, I find that I'm constrained by the same 24 hours in a day. And if I have to teach so many students, so many classes, so many exams, etc., where do I have time? My dear friends, I submit humbly that as teachers, we must find that extra time. Because unless we move beyond the subjects that we teach, how will we inculcate the broader thinking in the minds of our students? So this is the second point that I wanted to make. And can technology help handle these effectively? The answer is yes and no. Some technologies are not very meaningful, some technologies are meaningful. And last word has not been said yet. Over the next 10 or 20 years, you will find amazing new things which will keep coming. So this is my very basic observation. How and when does learning happen? Here is when it happens according to me. When a student listens, reads, observes, thinks, writes, then the student is learning. And the student solves problems, experiments, innovates, makes mistakes, asks questions. When a student articulates, discusses, collaborates, and when a student does not give up in the face of failure, but perseveres. My humble submission is, learning happens only when a student spends quality time on absorbing the subject matter, because whenever the student is doing any one of these things, the student is actually spending quality time in learning that subject. Do you agree? If you agree, then you will also agree that learning cannot and does not happen in any other way. There is absolutely no other way. आप घोड़े को तालाब तक ले जा सकते हैं, लेकिन पानी घोड़े को ही पीना पड़ेगा. The student has to learn on his or her own. And student, in order to learn best, must spend the best quality time on the subject. So what can we do as teachers? What we can do as teachers is this. This is the moral of my story. I have followed this assiduously for 50 years, that even if there are 75 students in my class, for me it may be a statistics, but for each one of them, I am the only teacher. And many times when I'm dealing with a class, I forget this simple fact, that for every student, I am important. And therefore, I am accountable to each student. This accountability is often missed. My system also asks me to remain accountable to the class. The average of the class is improving. Maximum students are passing, they are doing well. My job is not just to ensure improvement of the average learning of the entire class, but my job is to ensure that each student learns the most that he or she can. Of course, students will learn different. All students are not same. All students are not equal. But have I ensured that every student in my class has learned the best that he or she can? Well, unfortunate fact is I don't even know, because I am not able to reach out to every student. And this is the fundamental fact that I would like to enunciate with all of you, that my job in any pedagogy, using any technology, must be to connect, relate, and motivate. If I can do that, all other problems will get solved. But if I can't do that, no matter how well I do other things, there will be some basic ingredient which will remain inadequate. That is my submission. You may agree or not agree, but please think about it. When you talk to individual students, how delighted they are. I used to do, when my class used to be 40, 50, 70 students, I used to spend a day in mugging up all the names, remembering them by heart, and I would address them by name. And you will not believe, but when you address the student by a name, the student really starts thinking, oh my God, this teacher cares. And the other students also feel similar. Later on, when I had 350 students in my class, and I was becoming older and therefore more forgetful, but I started doing another trick. We had by this time an automated registration system, backend with Moodle and so on. So we had not just the names of the students, but their photographs also. So the complete list was there. So what I would do is, before every lecture, I will choose some 10 random people, remember their names and their faces. Then in that particular class, I will ask one of the students by name, pointing my finger. And the students were really amazed. I mean, how can this joker remember me out of 350 students? Of course, that student was never pointed to next time, because next time there will be 10 more students, 10 different students. So this is a small trick. But I tell you, the point that is being made is that students really felt connected. They felt encouraged to come outside the classroom, talk to me, because they thought that if this teacher knows me by name, maybe he's interested in talking to me. How many times do we actually acknowledge the good work done by the students publicly? Very rare. We don't have time. We have to cover their syllabus. So we forget this individual. How many times do we remember to scold a student, not publicly, but calling that student in your office and telling that student, this is where you're wrong? We don't do that. We don't have time and patience. We shout at the student publicly. Do you know how much hurt you are actually causing to the psyche of that student? Same thing, if you just call him, saying, beta, aisa mat karo. How much impact you can have. So, my entire life has actually revolved around this basic concept. Relate, connect, and motivate. Because I believe that that is the fundamental of any teaching learning process. So, help each student maximize the quality time spent on understanding a subject. Now let us come to the three aspects of the conventional pedagogy and the conventional time we spend. What a teacher does or can do even today is make interesting curated content. That is in our hands. After all, the syllabus defines something. There is a standard textbook, but how I present that is still in my hands. Engaging delivery. How much do we practice our delivery? I still remember when I was a young teacher, my salary was 350 dash something dash EB dash whatever. And I bought a tape recorder, Sony tape recorder costing 650 rupees. My wife was thrilled. She thought that I got that tape recorder for her to listen to beautiful songs by Muhammad Rafi and Lata Mangeshkar. She was quite shocked when she found that in the evening I stood before the full-length mirror and started recording my lecture. And then I would listen to that lecture and then I will note down so many places I say, ooh, etc. Good delivery does not come automatically unless you have practiced it for years. I have done that hard work. Did you? Now that's a question. So by just saying that our current pedagogy says engaging delivery means I prepare my lectures and I deliver that lectures. Not good enough. It is good, but not good enough. You have to take extra pains, extra precautions. Innovative assignments. I'll give you some examples which I faced when I went to IIT. At Indore, in the GSITS Engineering College, is one of the better engineering colleges, by the way. I had beautiful time because the examinations were standard. Solve any 6 out of 10 questions. I believe universities still follow that. I'll tell you more about it. But challenging assessments that help learning. Now these things, I mean, I keep telling people that IITs have not fallen from sky. IITs also have the same students and teachers like you and me. No different. The ethos is different. And there is absolutely no reason why that ethos cannot be created in every institution in the country. There is no reason why IITs and IIMs cannot be matched in the best of the teaching learning processes by anybody and everybody. But you have to spend time. There is no substitute for hard work. Hard work, somebody jokingly said that for 4,000 years of recorded history, people smarter than us have attempted to find a substitute for hard work. Nobody has succeeded. So there is no shortcut to that. But I digress again. So what a teacher cannot easily do is encourage collaboration and interaction and ensure focus on each student. Because there are just too many students in the class. But I tell you, if you spend some time in just talking to each individual at least once or twice in a semester, you will not know how much motivation you are able to contribute to that student. Student will do, anyway, as I said, ultimately the student has to learn. So student will spend good quality time if you do that. So here are some anecdotes. I was telling you about the exams that I had. The first exam I had in 1969 was Professor J.R. Isaac test paper in a discrete logic he was teaching us. And he announced in the class, tomorrow will be test will be 2 o'clock onwards. It will be an open book test. So I had never heard of open book test in Indore. So I went to him and I asked him, sir, which book can I bring? Oh, you can bring any number of books. I was very happy. I actually carried 5 books that day. Then I said, open time means what? The test is roughly 2 hours. So by 4 o'clock you'll finish, but I don't put any in. So as long as it takes, as long as you feel like writing. Next day I go there, I look at the question paper. I'm looking for the standard Indore University style question paper. There is no option, nothing. There is no explain something. There is no write short note or nothing. Problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, problem 4, paper ends. And I was shocked. Then I found out that none of the problems was even closely similar to the solved problems and unsolved problems that I had read from some books. I started reading books then. And, Isaac, there were 30 students in that instrumentation control computer selective. Isaac will move around the class, observing what everybody is writing. And anything that he does not like, he will give a big slap. You have to imagine a tall, hefty person with a large hand. I got 2 that day, two hard slaps, very difficult to forget. And he will add, not that idiot, read that book or read something. I gave that answer book back at 6 o'clock that evening. 2 full extra hours. And I was not the last person out. There was one more joker still writing the answers. And I came back very frustrated because I could not solve all the 4 questions. I had 2 questions I think I had partially solved correct. But later on, when I reflected, I realized that in those 4 hours, I had learned far more about that subject than I would have learned in an entire semester. How many of us are able to spend time to set such challenging problems to our class? And how many of us are forced by the system to set question papers which majority of people can solve? Of course, you cannot neglect people who cannot solve hard problems. But shouldn't your question papers have graded questions? Shouldn't there be some questions which people cannot easily solve? Here is an anecdote from a terminal examination many years later when I was a teacher, and I used to be the coach of my institute chess team. And one of the chess players came to me one day saying, Deepak, how do you solve this problem? Electrical engineering students. The question paper was on some fields or something. I immediately realized that it was late Professor K.C. Mukherjee's question paper. He was teaching that subject. I took that question paper. He asked me about question 3. I said, I read that and I could immediately say I can't solve it. But how do I admit I'm a teacher here? So I say, Arvind, I'm a computer science teacher, and return back then. He says, no, your basic degree is electrical engineering from Indore. Then I had to admit that I don't know how to solve this problem. But I said, I'm a teacher now. So let's go and ask Professor K.C. Mukherjee himself. And we both went to electrical engineering department. Old KCM was standing in his cabin. When he saw 2 of us with that paper dangling, he started smiling. He asked us to come. And then he looks at me. So, Phatak, question 3, huh? Oh, I said, yes, sir. So the student was watching him. He did not say anything, kept looking at him. After 15 seconds, student says, sir, what is the answer? And you know what Professor K.C. Mukherjee told him? I don't know. And he was shocked. The great Professor K.C. Mukherjee has set a question in the final exam whose answer he does not know. Then K.C. Mukherjee turns to me and says, Phatak, this is actually a small part of an unsolved research problem. For 10 years, nobody has solved it. But you know, this batch is so smart. I thought somebody will solve it. If this had happened in my Indore University, Vice Chancellor would have been घेरा out by students. Syllabus का बाहर का सवाल पूछा. The The anecdote does not end here. That same evening, the students had a small party in the hostel. Large number of students came from one hostel called Hostel 4. It was actually referred to as a madhouse. In those days, you would throw a milkshake party in a hostel if something great has been done by the hostel. In an inter-hostel tournament, you have won some hockey match, or you have got a debating trophy or something. And these children were having a party there. Milkshake was the costliest drink officially permitted those days on the campus. So that was the morale. The general secretary walked in and he said, "Arey, what has happened in our hostel? Why are you celebrating?" And you know what one of the students said? "Oh, you don't know? The great Professor K.C. Mukherjee thinks that we can solve unsolved research problems, so we are celebrating." See, this is the ethos. I told you IITs have not fallen from sky. IITs, IIMs are great because this kind of ethos prevails, where teachers do not mind challenging the minds of students and students do not mind getting challenged. Like, can you create that ethos? My humble submission to all of you is that the purpose of any pedagogy is to create this kind of ethos. So connecting and relating to every student is one aspect, but challenging the minds of students is another aspect. And between the two, you have a plethora of things to do. Use technology to the hilt, do all of these things. The new policy talks about creativity. So let me tell you, this happened just about 20 years ago. I mean, 20 years is a long time, but I've been a teacher for 50 years, so 20 years happens to be like yesterday. I was teaching a course to non-computer science students. It was a course on essentially database design, application design, because structured query language and databases can be learned by anybody and everybody. There's no need to be a computer science student. There used to be a large number of students there, and I would give them a course project to be done by a team collaboratively. So that time I had just finished doing a large national project for Reserve Bank of India using smart card for debit credit transaction. In fact, Indian first standards came out of that project. So I told my class that this smart card today is a very lallu kind of processor, 4-bit processor, 4 KB memory, and used to cost 150 rupees. I said, in 10 years' time, you are going to have more computing power in a smart card than even the desktops that you have today. So you're not going to use it just for debit credit transaction. Design an application. You don't have to implement, but you have to design. So people came up with various designs. One batch had designed a medical history kind of thing. So you go to a doctor, give your smart card, and your entire medical history comes out there. Another person had designed the relationship tree, human relationship tree. You think it is very simple, it is not. Because somebody somewhere goes and marries the aunt. Now you have a very complicated networking there, but yet the project that I am talking about was a very interesting. The title was Examination Assistance System using Smart Card. So what is Examination Assistance System? So they had designed a database which was organized chapter-wise, and within each chapter there were questions whose answers were recorded. So if, for example, in a question paper, you feel that there's some question from chapter 2, question 4, then you give these parameters 2 and 4, and the smart card will give you the answer, which you can, of course. So in the Viva, we used to have a group Viva where the group would be given group marks and individual students would be Viva to determine how much individual student has contributed. Slightly complicated, but a fair process. So I objected to the group saying that it is not an ethical application. And the team leader says, "Sir, that was not a condition of your assignment." I mean, that's what IIT student says. I said, fine, but you will require a computer to hold this. Yes, sir. You read our assumption list. The 7th assumption we have stated that all examinations 10 years later will be online. I said, that is not fair. 10 years later, I will still be around and I will still conduct the exams in a conventional way, on a paper pencil. So go back and redesign your application such that even if I am conducting the normal exam, your system should still assist you. They requested for 7 days, they went back. They came back with a following design. They didn't have to implement. What they did is, they added a signal processing chip on the smart card, which will convert from text to speech. And they added a transmitter on the smart card. Then they added a pressure sensor, which was to be put in one ear, and a audio receiver, which was to be put in second ear. The idea is that when you read the question paper and you say, for example, chapter 2, question 4, you pull the ear down 2 times, pull the ear up 4 times. The pressure sensors will capture these parameters, transmit it to the smart card. Smart card will look up the database, get the answer. The signal processing chip will convert that answer into audio. Transmitter will transmit it. You will listen to that answers and write your answer. I had to give them an A grade for creativity. You know, we talk of creativity in new policy. So creativity will come only if you challenge people. And it may not always come on the most, what should I say, ethical ground, but it will come nevertheless. I mean, I was sure that they will not be able to implement any such thing but nothing was rocket technology. All those technologies, even in 2002, 2003, were present. So as a precaution, I just told my colleagues that watch out on students who are pulling their ears here and there, you never know. Well, I'm sorry I've taken, oh my God. You see, my problem is I'm a storyteller and I hope you don't mind if I go through the remaining. I'll try to curtail my stories. So, do our students know how to learn? And this is the unfortunate observation that I have, because I was also a student, you were also a student. When we are students, we are guided mostly by the urge to score maximum marks. Because that is what we feel is most important in life. And that attitude is set by the rat race called examination. Scoring high marks becomes only ambition. So students need to be reminded that they have built-in features to learn. God has created us as human beings full of curiosity, full of boldness, full of perseverance, full of passion. Just recall the days when we were children and we were learning our mother tongue. No teacher, no certificate, no course, no exam, and yet we learnt it because we had these features. Somehow we have forgotten, or the school, college education system has made us to forget. I think we need to remind our students that you are endowed with all these features and therefore you should spend some time in learning things. So, these are articulated in New Indian Educational Policy Framework. Most of you would have read that. If you have not, please go through that document. It's a very beautifully written document. By the way, I had seen similar ideas articulated 20 years ago, 25 years ago, in a similar policy. I had seen similar ideas articulated 40 years ago. So it appears that you keep articulating the same ideas with a refinement, but today perhaps it is possible to do something about it. So please look at that. Our education is expected to be multidisciplinary, to be transformative and holistic, to promote creative and critical thinking. How many of us in our subjects can give assignments of this type where people work collaboratively? They are permitted to work collaboratively. They come up with creative ideas and they are assessed and marked for. Do we have time for doing all this? Do our students have stomach to take all these assignments? Research orientation. Unfortunately, just as we have made silos out of other disciplines, we have completely separated out research from education. This is so stupid. You know, if you think the coin of knowledge, it has two sides, research and education. You cannot separate those out. But we have separated them beautifully. If you understand the fundamental objectives of research, you will find that ability to do detailed analysis, ability to articulate yourself, ability to experiment, ability to persevere in failures. All of these you want from the second grade, third grade student in the school also. So why talk of research only when somebody is doing PhD or later? You should talk of research in undergraduate classes, you should talk of research in schools everywhere. And life skills, communication and teamwork. I tell you, this problem is most pertinent in situations like in this city of Indore, in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan, in Uttar Pradesh. I have seen where a large number of students coming to our college, when they are forced to study in English medium, have studied in vernacular language, their own. I did my higher secondary in Hindi, and I had no clue on how to understand English lectures. Luckily, I was underage, so I had to spend 1 more year doing BSc first year, and then come to engineering. So in BSc first year, I learned English. I learned English through English through physics, English through chemistry, and English through maths. I didn't have to score marks in those subjects then. But does that privilege exist for many of our students? So in first year, it is perfectly all right if you spend time in explaining to them in Hindi or in their native. We do that even in IIT system in some schools. But it is not perfectly all right to leave them at that. You have to tell them that they have to become proficient in learning English if English is going to continue as medium of instruction. There is no shortcut to it. Ethics and human values, the less said the better. Unfortunately, ethics cannot be taught by including it in a syllabus. I remember a very funny incident when the director of Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute, which trains IAS officers, I had gone to give a keynote there, and he was telling me at breakfast table that in his batch of IAS trainees, the person who scored maximum marks in the paper on ethics was known to be the most unethical person in that batch. So teaching ethics has to be by setting example. बचपन में हमारे संस्कार होते हैं, लेकिन बड़े होने के बाद हम शिक्षक जो करते हैं वो संस्कार. If we do not practice ethics every moment of our lives, do not expect students to practice that, because that is the only way of imparting the basic ethical principles. This is an important NEP suggestion that there should be no hard separation between arts and sciences, between curriculum and extracurricular, between vocational and academic, and we must try to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between different areas of learning. Tall order. I don't think it is going to happen very shortly, but in order to achieve this over the next 5, 10, 15 years, it is important for us teachers to broaden ourselves. If we restrict ourselves only to the subject that we are teaching, how will we help our students to broaden their own vision? So here is my submission that use extensively the information and communication technology, including for broadening your own vistas. I tell you, internet is a khajina, is a Alibaba's guha. You just go into it and you can get any number of things. But do we ever focus on finding out what other things are in life other than the subject that we are teaching? And use, of course, appropriate pedagogy for that. Here is another vision of the Indian NEP. Develop among the students a deep sense of respect towards the fundamental duties and constitutional values, bonding with one's country, and conscious awareness of one's roles and responsibilities in a changing world. What part of our education system or what part of our teaching learning process does this? Nothing. It's only by implication. Only by saluting your flag on 15th August and 26th January, do you become a better citizen? I doubt very much. So do we have occasions in our teaching learning process to initiate these philosophies? That's a question that I have. This is more important. Commitment to human rights, commitment to sustainable development. Sustainable development is, by the way, a big word now. All industries and companies in the world are required to ensure sustainability in whatever they do. And yet, how many of us teachers are even aware of what are the sustainability goals that have been set up, what are achievable. We know roughly about the carbon problem, carbon emission and so on, but we don't know overall the importance of sustainability that has been initiated. And I think that is a part of the policy that people have to learn this. So here is one suggestion. I have listed just 2 or 3 books. Independent of which subject you teach, I would suggest that you should read this and similar books. There's a book called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. It's a beautiful book because it asks questions about the state of the world. Economic progress made, financial progress made, learning progress made, etc. And he says that he has given the same questions to young students, to financial wizards, to political leaders in Davos, and everybody gives wrong answers to 80 to 90% of the questions because their knowledge about the world is shaped by the data which is 20 years old. For example, the average life expectancy of India and Bangladesh is 70 and 71 years today. It was less than 45 when we became independent. That is progress. He divides the whole world into 4 economic classes and says how people have been moving from first class to second class to third class and fourth class. And he has done all that prediction using UNDP data. And he predicts that the economic fulcrum, not predicts, he actually shows that the economic and financial fulcrum of the world is shifting from US to Europe to Asia. He predicts that by 2045 or 2050, 60% of the richest human beings will come from Asia. That means the progress that we have made, which we occasionally look at, needs to be embedded in our mind saying this is where we are moving. And that means we have to actually act as a matured society. And we have just about 20-25 years to do that. So your students will be taking leadership role and you have to prepare them for that leadership role. Learn about the world and how it is changing. The Extended Mind is a recent book by Annie Murphy-Paul. It actually talks about how the environment itself is an extension of the mind where learning happens. So what you do in a classroom, how you interact with people, what students do in a lab, what students do when they discuss amongst themselves, all of that is part of an extended mind. I have just given these 2 examples. There are 14 grand challenges which United States Academy of Engineers initiated in 2007. 2017, they rewrote those challenges. It is worthwhile for all of us to know what those challenges are. I have listed some of them here. Make solar energy economical. So please note that these challenges are stated as the large ambitious problems faced by humanity to be solved in this century. There is nothing technological about it. Engineer better medicines. Of course, you require technology, but that is an objective. Provide access to clean water. Do you know that a large number of people in this world today still do not have access to clean water? Reverse engineer the brain. It does not mean recreate the brain. It actually means understanding how brain functions. And our understanding, in spite of the great advances made, is extremely limited. So we have a long way to go. Advanced personalized learning. This is an objective or a grand challenge. It's very close to my heart. It should be close to your heart as teachers. Today we teach to a classroom. As I said, we would like to engage with individuals. But how nice it would be if the technology enables me as a teacher to find out what is most appropriate for every individual student based on the learning model of that student, developed using that student's interaction over a period of time. Today, it is still in the making. You will notice that these are called grand challenges of this century because people who wrote these believe that it may take up to a century for humanity to solve these problems. Not going to be easy, but we're all moving in that direction. Develop carbon sequestration methods. We talk about handling carbon, carbon dioxide, perpetual. Secure cyberspace. Another group of 1 billion people in the world who are terribly worried about cyber security. So providing that. There are so many things. There is a web page ID I have given. Those of you who are interested can look at that. Okay. So is research orientation part of it? I just mentioned this. The coin of knowledge has two sides, and path to knowledge is incomplete without both. Unfortunately, these are treated as two completely separate activities. It is very unfortunate. Never do that mistake. Because if we do that, you would never be able to set a unsolved research problem as a question paper for a third-year student in a college. Now, the onslaught of technology, and as I said, you are going to get onslaught of this technology over the next 10 days of this FDP. So I'll limit myself in just listing the important things. First, the early efforts. Digital content and assessment with intelligent tutoring systems and online quizzes has been around for more than 40 years. I had master students working on intelligent tutoring systems done with mainframe computers. But today the scenario is completely different. We have large number of simple tools which have evolved over the years. So all of you are familiar with word processing and spreadsheet. How many of you are familiar with LaTeX? Very few, because LaTeX is not very popular. Normal word processors are popular. But please try to learn. It's not difficult to learn these productivity tools at all. But I think they are the fundamental thing that you must become masters of. There are management systems. So there is learning management system and content management system. I was very happy to see that there is a session on Moodle and Canvas. Both are such management systems which are extensively used. They actually simplify the teacher's job to a large extent. You know, online registration, online grading, record keeping, so many hassles that a teacher has to otherwise do are taken care of. MOOC platforms. I myself have been working on MOOC. So there are many. I mean, Coursera, edX, Udacity were the early platforms. There are several new which have come up. The important point in our teaching learning pedagogy is the discussion forum which these platforms provide, where students can raise questions, the teacher can answer, the other students can answer, and the discussion forum becomes a sort of point around which everybody revolves. It's a very, very beautiful concept. So now, technology interventions. This is something that you should remember. You want to intervene technologically, then as teachers, you have to implement. That means unless you are sure of a particular technology, how will you implement it? Administration has to facilitate. There are many colleges whose administration does not have a clue on providing even the basics like email facility in the campus, or the basic like a common management system where people can register online. Fortunately, things are changing rapidly, but not as rapidly as one would like to have. And most important, students have to learn. So here is one problem that I have. Any pedagogy or any technical intervention we think of, the teachers and administration together decide on that, and they try to implement. But they rarely involve students right from day one. Unless the students are taught on how best to use that system, I think our efforts will be only partly successful, not fully successful. And pedagogy, of course, needs to be redefined in the context of what we are going to do here. So, real hard problem is implementation. Not what you choose to do, but how you do that. And here is my submission that when we assess teachers in their performance in any university or college system, they are often assessed only on the basic things, as I said, how many lectures were delivered, how many exams were held, how many students passed, and so on. If in the assessment metrics, you also put an additional parameter saying how many new technologies have been adopted, how many new technology interventions have been made. Because like students work for marks, let me tell you, we teachers also work for recognition. And our recognition will come from salary, promotion, but also recognition by other means. So if we make this activity as part of our recognition, it will perhaps help in faster adoption. Here is a plethora of problems that I have noticed. The online content, very rarely read thoroughly. Although I am taking too much time, but I'm tempted to tell you another story. When I was heading the School of Management in IIT Bombay for 1 year, God knows how, but the director decided that I should head that school. And there was a young teacher who failed 80% of her students in a course. And the students cribbed, saying, what has happened? So I asked the teacher, and she said, they have copied from internet. So she did a very wonderful thing. The assignment was given, and the assignment submission required people to write sort of detailed thing. So people had gone to internet, found out paragraphs, and paragraph after paragraph, unadulterated, was actually copied and submitted. And she was sitting with a printout, and she had taken efforts in every student's case to find out where the original data comes from. And she said, this is not on. And the student's script was that she should at most fail them in that assignment, but she can't fail in the course. And I sided with that teacher. I said, this is not taken. See, the problem with internet is that these contents earlier, it is not that copying is new, by the way. I mean, I must admit that when I was a student in engineering, there were previous years' journals which had to be meticulously copied. But that copying required me to read that original thing and write it once. कुछ तो समझ में आ जाए. आजकल इंटरनेट में I don't have to read. The paragraph comes from some place. The knowledge goes via my eyes and disappears. It just goes into the assignment. That is the problem. That must not happen. So the contents are very rarely read through unless you insist on reading them. Problem with online lectures, there is no connect between teachers. And so I have seen several online classes where I have conducted some lectures and I was horrified because all I see are photographs of people. Now I am teaching photographs. It's terrible. I mean, you don't know how happy I am to come here physically when your Vidyalaya told me that I should come personally and not give a lecture, because there is a different pleasure in talking to people in person. There is a different connect. There is a different, what should I say, spontaneity that does not exist in that. And online internet lectures with the students not being visible is a scam. It does not work. The students know it. The teachers know it. Unfortunately, in the pandemic time, there was no choice. And therefore, we were forced to do that. But that's not a good way because there is no connect between teachers and students. A flipped classroom is very useful. We have tried that. About 50 or 60 of us do that. In a flipped classroom, I record my lectures or I have the special lectures pre-recorded which students see before coming to my class. And the entire classroom is just discussion, problem solving. This works provided the students view those lectures outside the class. This flipped classroom concept is based on the assumption that if there are 3 lectures in a week for a course, then students should spend 3 hours at home studying for that subject. In reality, it never happens. I mean, we were all students. Did we study 3 hours for every subject that we should know? We studied in the preparatory exam leave, right? So students is a bloody extra effort. You are asking me to study the lectures at home and still attend classes. They don't understand this. But this also requires teacher to do a lot of work. Setting up problems when students have already listened to your lecture is not easy. And anticipating what questions the students will ask. Professor Supratik and I gave a course to 350 students. And I tell you, we killed ourselves, in spite of the fact that we had a large number of TAs. So it's a tough problem, but it is doable. And if you do that, the teaching learning improves significantly. So pandemic made classroom engagement difficult. Online became the buzzword. I think all institutions had to do that. So MOOCs was the solution. It is largely an asynchronous mechanism. All of us have heard of Swayam, NPTEL, IIT Bombay, IIM Bangalore X, Moodle. Unfortunately, we attempt to emulate exactly what was being done all these days. So I call it more of the same. My humble submission to you is that any technology intervention planned only on the premise of doing more of the same is unlikely to succeed. Because you're not using technology to the best of its ability. There is an inadequate understanding of online. So an online lecture, I must have people actually visible to me in action, not photographs, but people. And that requires bandwidth at their end, which may always not be possible. We have conducted such sessions, faculty development programs, training 10,000 teachers at a time. But all 50, 60 teachers participating from each remote center were physically visible to all of us. And they were live interacting. So that's a difference that we must make. I am particularly concerned about the use of the word offline engagement. This is supposed to be opposite of online engagement. Now that is nonsense. Offline is actually a technical word, which means I am still working on computer, but my server is not connected online to the backend system. That's the only difference. So for God's sake, stop using the word offline engagement. Start using the word face-to-face engagement. Because that is what it is. So this is a face-to-face engagement against any computer-related online or offline engagement. In fact, using MOOC platform is mostly an offline engagement, but using MOOCs. You will be surprised why I am listing simple technologies as useful technology. Email, chat sessions, telephone calls, discussion forums. My dear friends, I believe these are very fundamental technologies because they help us connect to individual students who are not visibly present. And email interaction. How many emails do we write to our students? How many emails did we write to our students when students were not visible and not possible for them to come and connect? Very few. Because it never occurred to us that connecting to individual student is equally important in any pedagogy. Chat sessions. You can have chat sessions, live chat sessions. There are simple tools which are available. Telephone calls, simple telephone call. I'm tempted to tell you one more story, very important. One of our faculty development programs on animation. My colleague, Dr. Samir Sahasrabudhe, was conducting that program. And he found out that out of some 700 participants across the country, it's an online program, among the top 25 performers, 8 of them had not submitted the final assignment. So he sent an email to all 8 of them and followed it up by making a phone call. So one particular person, she was a lady, and she was, I think, working in the Institute of Military Engineering in Pune or something. And so the principal director himself called, picked up the phone and said, she's on maternity leave. And he said, I'm a teacher of this course and she has done well, so I would like to speak to her. So the director gave him her residence number. Samir Sahasrabudhe made a phone call to her. And he says he could hear the child, small child crying. And this lady said, yes, sir, I got your mail. But you know, my child is so young. I don't think I'll be able to complete that assignment. He says, very unfortunate, but that's all. He kept the phone. 2 hours later, he got a phone call from her husband. And the husband said, I have been telling her that she has done so well in this course. She should complete that assignment. For the last 2 hours, we are fighting and arguing. And I have promised that I will take care of the child till she completes the assignment. She submitted the assignment. It turned out to be one of the best assignments. This is what a personal connect can do, my dear friends. A similar story, since you mentioned Borava, somebody was from Borava. Borava is a place in Khargone district, which is a remote center from IIT Bombay in the engineering college there. Again, the same similar course, but this time for students on animation. And Samir Sahasrabudhe said there should be a team assignment. Team can be of 3 people. He got an email from one of the students saying, can you permit us to make a team of 5 people? And he said, no, 3 should be 3. She again replied saying that we have a serious problem, etc. So Samir came to me. I said, go into details. What would you do in a classroom? You'll ask them, right? Then the girl who had written to him explained that they come from a town near Maheshwar. Every day they would go by bus to Morava. But on Saturday, Sunday, there was no college. And they, amongst the 5 girls, had only 1 laptop. So they said on Saturday, Sunday, we will not be able to use institute facilities. And therefore, if you restrict our team to be of 3, 2 of the girls will not be able to do the project. Samir agreed. All exchanged by email. But personal emails by the teacher to students and by students to teachers. And I tell you, those 5 girls submitted the assignment, which turned out to be one of the best assignments in the entire course. So later on, Samir went there, had a small video made. We call them the Panchakanya of Borava. But that is the power of a simple technology like email has. Do we use it? So the assessments, the live audio video interaction, please note I have deliberately not included the conventional online courses in MOOCs. They are there, of course. You have to use them. But I have listed those which can be easily adopted by teachers, and they can be meaningfully adopted. These 2 slides just list the questions that we should ask ourselves as teachers and as students. Did I read all text reference books? I'm a teacher. It's my duty to read that. But perhaps I didn't get time. Did I learn and use tech platforms effectively? Well, did I learn and use tech platforms? Yes. Effectively? Not sure. So make sure that we effectively do that. Did I record my video lectures properly? Did I make sure that it's a good quality video? Did I set new questions in each examination? Or was I tempted to copy some old questions from some old question paper somewhere else, thinking that nobody knows about it? Setting up additional new questions requires hell of a lot of time. And that time has to be spent by teachers. Please mark my words. If you don't adopt this simple additional pedagogy, any other pedagogy that you use is not likely to be very effective. You have to challenge the students in you. Did I encourage students to collaborate? There is no mechanism. All our life we have spent in assessing individual students. Exam, no copying, no discussion. Okay, submission, individual submission. Let them collaborate, let them work together. That is where they will learn maximally, but we have no mechanism. Try to use technology to improve that collaboration. Did I acknowledge good work publicly? Please mark my words. Use technology like email. Write a mass email to, I used to do that in my large class. Whenever some student submits something really good, apart from the discussion forum, I'll send a mail saying, look at the solution done by this student. Believe me, that student will work his or her heart out in the remaining semester, and everybody else will be encouraged. We don't do that because it does not occur to us that that is an important part of teaching. Did I connect with every student in my class at least once? This question is in bold, and this is my challenge to all of my colleague teachers and a humble request. Please make sure that there is no student in your class who is left alone without you connecting or relating to him or her. At least once. For God's sake, do that. And believe me, that student will remain respectful to you rest of his or her life. Because they value you so much. And do our students ask this question? So you have to train students to do this. Did I study the subject with a defined plan? or did I study only for my exams? Did I learn and use tech platforms effectively? Same question for the student. Did I view video lectures seriously, taking notes? People watch video lectures as if they are watching movies. That is not good. In a regular lecture, you will take notes. So here you must take notes. Did I read text or reference books? Did I discuss and collaborate with others? Did I raise queries? So just as it is important for us teachers to relate and connect with students, it is important for students also to relate and connect with teachers. The desire must be both ways. They send my emails only after correcting mistakes. Many students don't read their email before pressing the send button. Why? Many of us teachers don't do that. So there are English language mistakes. And the standard answer that I get is, sir, English is not my mother tongue. Then I ask them to write in their mother tongue. And believe me, they make mistakes in writing Hindi or Telugu also because they have not trained their mind to write correctly. And it is very, very important to enforce this discipline because this century is all about communication amongst people in the world. Did I read others' posts in the discussion forum? Did I work hard on my assignments? And did I analyze the answers given in an exam? Or I just looked at the marks and forgot about it? What were the mistakes I made? So you will see that all these questions, if answered, they intrinsically connect to a pedagogy which should become the heart and soul of your teaching learning process, whichever technology you adopt. So the concluding session is educate students on use of technology, train teachers to be facilitators and energizers, and reorient administration to achieve both. All three are very, very important. Use appropriate technology for all these. It is not my place to tell you which technology you should use or whatever it is, but whichever you use, this is how you should use. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry I have taken half an hour more than what was allotted to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable knowledge with us. We are amazed by your keen and remarkable observation in the complete teaching learning process. All teachers and students definitely relates them with each and every word. Thank you, sir. And you will always be role model of all the teachers. Thank you. Now, to formally propose the words of thanks, I request Mr. Preman Sharma, Assistant Registrar, Academic Section, SVVV.
A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries and present excellencies. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, all respected HOIs, HODs, coordinators, all present faculty members, my colleagues, and dear participants. As one of the coordinator of this FDP, it gives me immense pleasure and I feel privileged to express my gratitude and words of thanks on the occasion of this inaugural session of Faculty Development Program on improving teaching learning process through technical interventions organized by Association of Indian Universities and Academic and Administrative Development Center of Sri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya. Firstly, I would like to thank Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. D.B. Phatak sir, recipient of Padma Shri, Chairman Board of Governors, IIT Indore, and Professor Emeritus, IIT Bombay. We thank you, sir, for giving your precious and valuable time to us and enlightening us with your knowledge and words of wisdom. Sir, today we are feeling very much connected with you. We are already connected with you. We can relate with your teachings and we are feeling highly motivated in your esteemed presence. We are very hopeful that in future also, we will be getting your continuous guidance and blessings. I also want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Suranjan Das, President AIU and Honorable Vice Chancellor Jadavpur University for his inspiring address and giving his valuable time today. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Honorable Chancellor, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Shri Purushottam Das Pasari ji, for always being the pillar of strength in our endeavors. I extend my gratitude to Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, Dr. Rupinder Sir, who always motivate us for betterment. We are very grateful to have been able to work under your dynamic leadership, sir. Thank you, sir. A warm thank goes to our respected Dr. Santosh Dhar Madam, Dean FDSR, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, for always guiding and motivating us in executing such events successfully. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks to respected Dr. Anand Rajawat sir, Dean Academic, Shri Vaishnav Vidyapit Vishwavidyalaya, and Nodal Officer for AIU-SVVV Academic and Administrative Development Center. Thank you, sir, for your active guidance and support in managing and executing this event so smoothly. A special mention and thanks goes to Dr. Amrendra Pani, Joint Director and Head Research Division, AIU, New Delhi, who is also the AIU convener for this FDP. Behind every successful program lie the manifold attempts of our committed team members. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the immense contribution of our dedicated team who indulge themselves for making this FDP successful by their efforts. Thanks to Engineer Sukriti Agrawal, Assistant Professor SVIIT, and one of the coordinator of this FDP along with me for her dedicated support, involvement, and hard work. Thank you. Special thanks to all working committee members, including hospitality team, technical team. Each one of your role was very important, and without your support, conducting such events smoothly is not possible. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for their active and zestful participation. I wholeheartedly thank each one of you for taking time out and making the beginning of this FDP a success. Thank you all, and a very happy learning ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As a tribute to the history, struggles, and traditions of the nation, I would like to request all to rise for the national anthem.
Jana Gana Mana Adhinayaka Jaya Jaya Sindhu Jaya Maratha Dravida Utkala Vanga Vindhya Himachala Yamuna Ganga Uchchala Jaladhi Taranga तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Bharat Mata ki. Thank you, everyone. With this, we came to the end of the inaugural session of FDP. Thank you, everyone, for gracing the event with your presence. Have a nice day. Our next session will be in the Apple Lab. All the participants are requested to present there at 2:30 p.m.